out. They re-recorded it, what they did.
Was this common? Did this happen?
yes.
Is that what this whole book is?
Well, no. You're just going to have some every so often that they would have brought in. They might have thought, well, I never thought about bringing it back in here and having it re-recorded. And they might have done that up until 1874 or such.
Okay, so 1866 then, or
1861.
1861, as far back as you go in these records that have been refiled.
What I have found.
Okay. With Susan Luce, who's the recorder of deeds for Dunklin County. Susan called and told me about a very special visit she was going to have today. And Susan, who was the guest?
This lady here, her name is Joan Feeser. She's from Charleston, Missouri, out of the Secretary of State's office, and she's with the local records archivist. That's what she is.
All right. And she comes down regularly to Dunklin County. You visit Dunklin County often?
Yes, I do. I come as I'm needed by the county officials.
Okay, so you just put in a call and...
Yes, ma'am, and she comes as soon as she can.
And she comes as soon as she can. Okay, we would like to visit with you and find out more about your job, if we could.
Okay.
Joan is here in Kennett today for to do an interview with us for a very special reason. Joan, you found some interesting things. I read that it's some things that raise eyebrows. Is this true?
Yes, it is. While I was working in Jefferson City on some Supreme Court documents, I ran across one that dealt with Dunklin County. I knew that Dunklin County's records had been destroyed by a fire. And
now we're talking the courthouse in 1872, right?
In 1872, yes. And that was just one of the cases that I put a flag on to go back and look at it. When I did it, I discovered that it was a fraud case, and it involved 40,000 acres of swampland.
Now wait. You discovered it was a fraud case, but now it wasn't stamped on this page, fraud, fraud, fraud. How did you discover it was a fraud case?
By reading the opinion of the Supreme Court.
So you sort of had to back into this conclusion.
After I got into the testimony, then it became clear that there was not just one instance of fraud, but there were multiple instances of fraud going on in the county right after the Civil War.
Okay, Civil War ended what year?
It was in 1865.
All right, and so you're talking about 7 years after the end of the Civil War, Reconstruction period.
Yes.
Tell me, lay a little bit of that history for us if you can. Who's in office? What has happened in the government?
Okay. During the Civil War, legend has it that the residents of Dunklin County refused to believe that Missouri did not secede from the Union. So they had a 3-day convention in Clarkton and decided that the county itself would secede from the Union.
Okay, now I've read about this. They really did? Was it legal, the fact that Dunklin County seceded from the Union?
I can't find any documentation in records stating that this is what Dunklin County did. However, the county did do something that was so treasonous that the governor removed all of the officials from office, and they put Dunklin County under the jurisdiction of Stoddard County. So during the Civil War, Dunklin County was not ruled by Dunklin County, but it was ruled by Stoddard County.
Okay, now they did something so treasonous. Was this the act of saying we're not going to be part of this union?
I really believe it was. I'm still looking for documentation for that.
So that's sort of cloudy yet.
Yes, it is. But the governor felt that the area was inhabited by rebels. He appointed a lieutenant in the federal forces from Scotland County, which is right on the Iowa border, to come to Dunklin County and to become collector and sheriff. They did this in several counties throughout the state where there were rebel forces that were predominant in the area.
Okay, so we're going to be punished, and this is going to be the way we're going to do it, self-government.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Right after the Civil War, this Elon G. Rathbun is here in the county.
Now, what's his name?
Elon G. Rathbun.
Well, I can tell already there's something wrong with him if he has a name like this. Okay.
True. He also became Commissioner of Swamplands. The county court commissioned him to do this. There was a man by the name of W.S. Sugg from Dyersburg, Tennessee, who moved to Dunklin County to Kennett right after the Civil War.
Now, say that last name. How?
Sugg.
S-U-G-G?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
He moved to Kennett with his young brother-in-law, James P. Walker, and they established a mercantile store here.
In Dunklin County?
In Dunklin County. In Kennett.
In Kennett?
In Kennett.
Okay.
Right close to the square.
Okay.
Somewhere around the courthouse. By some hook or crook.
Probably crook, the way you sound.
Probably. The county court commissioned Rathbun to make a contract with someone to clean out the Varner and St. Francis rivers to make them navigable for boats.
Steamboats now we're talking about, to get the stumps out of the Varney River.
Right.
And to get the stumps out, and is that when they decided they could make a passage all the way to St. Francis, Arkansas, by cleaning out the Varney?
That's right.
Okay.
But I think really that the commissioners weren't too interested in really getting the rivers cleaned out, because they made this contract with Sugg to clean out these two rivers, and in exchange they were going to give him 40,000 acres of swampland.
40,000 acres.
40,000 acres.
Okay.
The land is in the very southern part of the county. They didn't know it then, but now we know that that is the lowest point in the state of Missouri.
Oh, we're talking about around Hornersville then?
Yes.
Okay, the whole Hornersville, Cardwell, all that area. All right.
That's the area we're talking about. Mr. Sugg was to give the county court an $80,000 bond to guarantee his performance of cleaning out the river. He began working on the river. He bought a boat from a man here in the county and brought over some blacks from Tennessee, and they began to clean out the Varner River. Mr. Sugg became ill and couldn't complete the contract, so he made an agreement with his younger brother, Wiley P. of Dyersburg, to complete the contract. In exchange, Wiley P. was going to get 20,000 acres of the swampland, and he was going to pay his brother $1,380 to do the work.
All right. We've got the picture so far.
Okay. Within a matter of months after the Sugg brothers made their agreement, Mr. Sugg's store that he had here in Kennett went bankrupt. He had no property since he had deeded all of the swampland over to his brother to satisfy the judgments. Wiley P., the younger brother, went to the creditors and offered to give them swampland in exchange for their debts, the judgment that they got against Mr. Sugg. But he wanted to do it at a rate of $10 an acre when the land was only worth $1 per acre. Of course, the creditors immediately started hollering foul. They said that this was fraud, this was collusion, and it very obviously was. The brothers' main intent was to get the land, get it into Wiley P.'s name. William S. would declare bankruptcy. They would force the creditors to take some of the land. But in the end, William S. would be out from under his debts, and he and his brother would also retain about 98% of the land. So they could cheat the creditors and still retain the land. Of course, the creditors were very upset about this, and they started filing lawsuits. But in the meantime, William S. Sugg died, and his brother William S. died in 1873. And his brother continued to clean out the Varner River and St. Francis River until 1875, when he claimed that he completed the work. But in the meantime, there's always an in the meantime.
In the meantime, okay.
In 1870, after the county judges made the contract with SUG, that was in the spring, in May. In November, the people of the community started talking among themselves, and they realized that there was this fraud going on.
So, now tell me, okay, the swamp, there's a lot of land, and it's swampy, and so they're saying it's not worth but 50 cents to, and really nobody wanted it at that point. So how did the people realize there was a fraud going on? What made them what made them think this?
Because when they would go by the Varner River and would watch the men cleaning out the river, they said that the boat was just a tiny fishing boat. There was no equipment on it. The men were just sitting there. They were doing no work. Yet they were claiming that they were doing the work. And even though the land was considered not to be worth much, they always had the hope that someday the rivers would be cleaned out and the land would become valuable.
Okay. Now, we're not talking about the idea that any railroads may be coming in, or that they're going to get any land, or that they're going to. The railroads don't enter into this at that time.
No, the railroads don't enter into it.
Okay.
In fact, because that the railroads aren't there, is why this was able to come about, because a group of men formed an association for river traffic. The land was too low, too swampy to build a railroad.
Okay.
And it wasn't until 1878 that there was a short railroad built in the northern part of the county. They realized that if they had the rivers cleaned out and could be made into riverways, that would take the place of railroads.
You've been listening to a very interesting story that took place in this part of Dunklin County back in the 1872 period of time. We don't have the conclusion tonight, but you watch tomorrow night, and we'll let you hear Joan Fizor as out of the Secretary of State's office.